Welcome, everyone, to the newest version of Breaking Big Blue in collaboration with Giants Nation Show and Bobby Skinner. We're actually together live to do this one. We're in a hotel parking lot.
Yeah, the Hombres are having Modelo's and dinner. A couple,
They are
parking spots
They are.
over from
maybe
us.
Maybe they'll bring some over here. At some
I
point.
know. They're not, Modelo's not a sponsor, but I'll take them as one. We
here for joint practices though the next couple of days in Florham Park with the Jets and Giants. Actually, a home and home, Florham Park, East Rutherford, which should be fun because there's some things that we would still like to see. The preseason game was something. We'll get into that in a minute. We'll also go over specifically the rookies, and then we'll do some sort of training camp stock draft. We'll each pick 5 guys in order. We'll alternate of the 10 players we think their stock is the highest, not just preseason, but preseason and training camp combined so far today.
Well, what I'm excited for is usually it's like training camp, everyone's all in. And then once the first preseason game happens, nobody really cares about the actual practices anymore. It's about the preseason. But that's usually because the joint practices are first. The joint practices, I think, are almost people are more invested in those in the games at times. So I'm excited to be, up here for these last 2 ones.
I would say joint practices are almost more important than the preseason. Like I would probably take more from joint practices than I would from the preseason. Like I don't know if no one's ever proven that the preseason has any correlation to what happens in the regular season. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's guys that'll do well in the preseason and they'll be terrible in the regular season. Like there's no direct correlation between the two, whether you perform well on the other. I think it's probably different in joint practices when you see a full practice. It's more plays and the one drive or whatever you're going to play. I think it's actually better. So
yeah, and the intensity is crazy high. It's a little mix of these guys have been hitting each other and there's no penalties, don't matter, and like so, and this is also the thing too, is because they don't actually tackle. You're always on the edge of what is dirty and what's not, because it's not your own teammates. So those always lead to fights. I will say I want to see one fight. We haven't seen a training camp fight, but I don't want it to be early. I want it end of second practice because I just don't want these guys being like, you know what, cut it short. Like this isn't good. Like the Jeremy Shockey fight, and what was that, 2003 or so?
Yeah, when they went up to Albany and the Jets Giants, basically it was Herm Edwards and Tom Coughlin's team. And
yeah, with this partnership, I actually have a request.
Okay,
you cannot find that footage anywhere. The Jeremy Shockey fight.
Really?
I have looked. I've spent hours trying to find it, but I do remember it on SportsCenter, and I would assume that they have footage of every sport. Like you guys have archives of every SportsCenter ever. If we can, that is something I need, because there's Big Blue VCR doesn't have it. I've looked through every thing that there was there. Online
tool that I have to go through old archive footage, but I mean, we could search. Biggest upset at camp might be actually James Hudson somehow not fighting somebody, because that guy has an edge to him. You could see that's how he plays. Like even after every rep in one-on-one, he's like going and headbutting guys, Kavon Tibido, and chest bumping and like getting in his face. So they've shown good restraint in that regard. I'll give him credit for that. Let me just add this one quick thing. Going into joint practices, Malik Neighbors is an interesting one because that's what we want to see. We want to see Malik Neighbors and Sauce Gardner go at it, right? Is he just unguardable? Because he's been unguardable at Giants camp. Is it because they don't have a number one cornerback, the Giants, or is it because, or is it just, like when he goes up against a guy at Sauce Gardner's level? And I know some people say Sauce isn't that good. He's really good.
I think he's amazing.
Yeah, I think he's excellent. So is it to the point where Malik Neighbors just can't even be guarded by the top guys? I think that's what I want to see. Been dealing with what I was told was another minor injury, non-toe related, but he's supposed to be good. So there is a chance that we're going to see him in these joint practices coming up in the next couple of days. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think the joint practices is the fun to see the star players against other ones. I know we got Carter versus Dawkins, so we finally got a taste of him against someone else.
Such a small sample size. It was great. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. But I want to see him against Olu and Membu, their first round pick, that I really liked out of Mizzou. And Olu was, one of my favorite offensive tackles in the last 5 years or so. Only really like guys like Thomas and Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater that I liked more than Olu. So I'm really excited for it. But, we did also have the preseason game.
Yeah, so let's go over that. We'll start with the rookies, because I think that's where you need to start when we're talking about the Giants here. If you watch that preseason game, and you already had high hopes about their rookies, especially their first-round picks. We'll start there. You had to come away impressed. Abdul Carter, 6 snaps, 3 pass rush reps. You could officially, I saw 2 pressures, but we, depending on how you want to judge it, engage it, could have been 3. Very impressive in limited playing time. And I thought it was interesting because how did they use Abdul Carter? The first drive, he didn't start. Okay, so it's Thibodeau and Burns. And he comes in sort of like a special pass rush package, right, on third down, plays on the interior. Second drive, he originally subs in for Thibodeau, and then Thibodeau eventually comes in for Burns. So they're kind of doing an alternating thing there. So I think that's kind of how we're going to see him utilized.
I think that's how you should. So we've seen in training camp too, with the versatility of Abdul Carter is, something we talked about once they drafted him. And a lot of people go to, playing linebacker or QB spot. I'm not that interested in it. I want him moving forward. But the easiest way is on third down, moving him inside. Like that's as simple as that. You don't want that on 1st and 10 because of his size, it'll allow them to have, the offense of that big runs. But third down is when they see them use it, but it almost is exclusive that, right? Like I thought we'd see that on third down a good amount. It seems like every third down, they're going to try and put Kavon and Burns on the outside and Abdul Carter at the 3 technique at minimum. And then when they start getting into game plan and stuff, when they'll have like standing up in the A gap. So it seems like exclusively on third down, they're going to have him on the inside.
And then on 1st and 2nd down, I think there's kind of going to be a 3-man rotation. Like let's say Burns and Thibodeau are out there the first drive to start in base packages. And then the second drive, it's going to be Burns and Carter. And then maybe every 3 drives, it'll be it'll be Carter and Thibodeau. And then you do kind of that rotation, then you settle into it as the game goes on. To me, that's a good way for all of them to get significant playing time, yet maybe keep them semi-fresh, especially because Brian Burns was beat up so much last year. I think it actually would be good for him to play, 80% of the snaps instead of 100.
Yeah, no, that's again, I think Carter should be playing more than Kavon if they want to give Kavon the honor at start of the game. I guess that's fine because of, seniority. But in reality, as a rookie year for Carter, it should be Burns, Carter, Kavon for snap share. And if anything, you put Carter at 1. And I said this on the show the other day. And I know we always get hyped up for rookies and stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about that, like Jackson Dart's preseason performance. It was a certainly good performance.
We're getting to that next, yeah.
But, when you go back and watch the films, like you do remember, these are extremely basic defenses that they're facing. But with Carter, I just don't feel like there's overreaction to him because we just saw him do it against Deion Dawkins, right? We saw how you may say, it's against the guard, but he's going to get that matchup and he's going to get those types of pressures the way that Micah Parsons does with Dallas, and you see him on the field with Brian Burns and Kavon. So if you had no idea of any of those guys and you just watch, you'd be like, that guy's better. If you watch training camp in one preseason game, you'd say, who's the best out of those 3? It would be Abdul Carter.
We haven't gotten to the point yet where it's really been talked about, but this is sort of like I think the most under talked about topic is what's going to happen and how is Kavon and Thibodeau going to deal with it if and when Abdul Carter, they realize we can't have Abdul Carter not be on the field. And he basically is ahead of Kavon Tibido and starts cutting into his playing time. Because let's be honest, Kavon Tibido is in basically a contract year, essentially. So he knows he needs to play well. Plus, he's a good player in this league. He's a starting caliber player in the NFL. So it'll be interesting because I think it's natural. He's not going to want to naturally go to lose playing time. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Giants do it. And I think they're going to do it with kid gloves. Because of that reason, you don't want to alienate him. You want to get as much as you can out of Kavon Tibido and Abdul Carter. So they'll have to massage it very gently early on. That's how I expect them to handle it.
And that's why I think Kavon will kind of get the honorary start in those situations. I remember last year with the whole Slayton Hyatt thing, and it was like, hey, I want depth. I want both these guys on this team. But I spent last year offseason saying, one of these guys is going to be unhappy. And, you reported, that after that first preseason or second preseason game that Hyatt, muttered to the coaching staff, because they just, at that point, they said Slayton is now the starter. The battle is over. Slayton's the starter. And Hyatt, muttered whatever, trade me if you're not going to use me. It's different with defensive ends because they rotate. And we've seen it with the Giants with,
But you also don't want to lose a guy and have him where you basically alienate him, and then he feels like I'm not part of the future. I don't have a place here. So that's a very delicate situation they're going to have to deal with.
And that's why it's different for defensive ends, and Kavon's just a much higher level of player than Jalen Hyatt.
Right, he's already proven to be a double-digit sack guy.
But here's like the middle ground of that is the Giants did it with Strahan, OC, and Tuck, and then OC, Tuck, and Jason Pierre-Paul. I think the difference, though, is that the third guy of that group was a much better player than what Kavon is right now. So I think he still needs to step up as a player to make this a real three-headed monster. Because if he's what he was last year, in reality, it's a two-headed monster with a luxury third rusher.
I think you're going to get the best of Kavon Tibido this year because of what I mentioned before, this essentially being a contract year for him knowing Abdul Carter's here. Like he realizes the situation. And I think he senses that. And I think you're actually probably going to get the best of him as a result, which is a good situation for the Giants. And that's obviously a strength of the team. Let's go to Jackson Dart for a second, because that's the other rookie, equally as impressive probably as Abdul Carter. That touchdown throw he made has to make you feel a couple of things. There was a couple of situations where he stepped up in the pocket, he was under pressure, didn't panic. And that touchdown pass where Jake Kubac just got beat, flat out beat. And there was pressure coming right up the middle. He stepped into a throw and took a hit. And that was just an absolute dart, for lack of better terms, for a touchdown pass. Little Jordy Humphrey. That's my cousin right there, little Jordy. But just absolutely perfect throw. So you had to feel good, because I think what he did is, look, you don't go nuts about the preseason. Like I said, I don't think it's an indication whether you don't start puffing out your chest saying, I told you, it's too early for that. But it is him checking the box and flashing the skills and the talent of why he was a first-round pick. The athleticism, he threw some, fastballs on some of those, out patterns and real, short, quick passes. You could see the velocity on them. Actually, I didn't see that velocity with him regularly during training camp. I saw it during the game, and I was like, wow, that's probably – I think he threw that ball harder than any ball I saw during training camp. So maybe the juice is flowing. That's more part of his game live. And then the touchdown pass. So you saw all the skills and talent of why he was a first-round pick, and the Giants traded up for him, and he was Brian Daboll's guy, and he fell in love.
Yeah, the deep pass was obviously the highlight of it. He even, checked into a deep pass, which is one of the more basic audibles, but still, having the confidence to do that in your
single high safety. You see the guy on the opposite side. He's going to get one-on-one. Let's throw him the ball.
Yeah, it's as basic as an audible as you get, but it's just having the sound mind to be like, all right, this is what we're checking into, not getting overwhelmed at looking at whatever the defense is showing you. And I thought you see him made some big boy reads. In fact, I thought my favorite read that he made was that miss he had on the first third down, the Greg Dulcich, where the front side was covered.
We overthrew him.
Yeah, where the front
just ducked. Do you think he thought there was somebody behind him?
I slowed it.
Right?
I don't know. I slowed it down, and it was high and behind him. But the front side wasn't there. It was a third and short. He gets to the backside.
He's got to be at least the third read there.
Yeah, it's even there's three players on the front side. That's the first read, and then the first read isn't there, or it's not going to be there. It's not worth hanging in here for this against man coverage. He
stepped up a little bit.
Yeah, and so you saw on the 2-minute drive him kind of navigate the pocket on the across to Montrell Washington. So it certainly wasn't perfect. The accuracy. He flat out missed three throws. The Washington yak play, was a little behind him, but you saw the first few days of training camp. I was like, okay, this guy's far away. I think he's made some serious strides since then, where he looked kind of lost. And again, it's basic defensive coverages. They gave him passing concepts that he was familiar with at Ole Miss for the most part. But he definitely has just more confidence in what he's doing. But let me ask you this, because I thought was pretty intriguing was the press conference from Brian Daboll asked. In fact, Grimsole asked,
you texted me afterwards.
I'd never seen Daboll like that.
Cocky Daboll, I think he said.
Well, yeah, it was cocky Daboll and just kind of fawning over one player. You really had never seen that, right? We've seen Daboll presser moments, the Colts game last year, which felt like him campaigning for his job. If quarterback play is right, this is what it'll look like every week. But Grim Solo says there's the way Daboll clearly loves Dart, move the needle for you on how early they could put him in this year. The press conference makes me feel it's coming sooner rather than later. That's where, when we talk about how to react to preseason, that's where I feel like we shouldn't overreact and rush Dart's timeline along, because you have Russ here. I don't think he's going to come in and save the season, and it is very basic defenses. I can, I would, we could sit here all day with like, remember that rookie QB that had a good preseason and just didn't pan out in the
Daniel
NFL?
Jones.
Well, even
Daniel Jones had one of the best preseasons we've ever seen his rookie year. I think he completed like 80-something percent.
Yeah, it was 82% of his passes.
Yeah.
Like he was throwing the ball down the field. But even like, guys like Zach Wilson and stuff, guys who were just like can't even start a game level of quarterbacks who have had good preseasons. So that's where I wouldn't overreact. Because like you said, you check the box, but in no means am I accelerating the timeline. But that's also a question I've had all summer is we can all talk about his timeline. Nobody loves him more than Brian Daboll. Right. And Brian Daboll is the one who has, everything on the line with this guy.
He knows he's invested with him. And I think the most important thing that we've seen from Jackson Dart this summer, it's not necessarily the preseason game, it's that he's made progress and that he continues to get better. Like you said, I didn't think he was great the first couple of weeks of camp. He admitted that he wasn't great the first couple of weeks of camp, started to feel more comfortable. He still has some up and down days or up and down moments. Like, he comes in the 2-minute drill, they put him in and the ball snapped off his head. Like these kind of things happen. You got a massive buck.
I know, face. I feel it.
All right. You're good. I couldn't look at you.
I'm allergic to wasps.
That thing wasn't a wasp, but it looks like more like a mosquito. It's even in your hair right now.
Yeah, I know. I could feel it. This is a big ass bug.
It's sucking all your blood out. But it's the progression that you see from him that makes you feel best of where he's going. And if he continues to do that, that's when I think he could earn more trust from the coaching staff, right? The more he plays well, the quicker he earns the trust of the coaching staff, where they feel that they could put him in games and not have him just get his teeth kicked in, basically. Yeah. So I think that's important as we go along here this summer. But also, they named everyone, like, they're going to ask, is he closer to starting? You think there's a chance he could start now? They signed Russell Wilson, and they essentially told him you're the starter. They basically guaranteed him he's going to be the starter, right?
Right.
And they made that very clear from day one here. They could have left it open. They decided not to. They've been adamant that he's going to start week 1. Barring anything crazy, I think he's going to start week 1. Now, Jackson Dart can put himself in position to getting in earlier in the season by playing well and continuing to make progress. But I don't think, barring something crazy, he could do anything or anything's going to happen that puts him in a position to start week 1 against the Commanders.
No, I still think what dictates him getting in is how the team is performing, and is it last 4 or 5 games of the year, let's see what we've got or get him some experience, or is it a panic? We've got 11 games left, 10 games left. We got to go to this guy now because it's getting hot. Because we can all talk about how we'd handled the scenario. Mm-hmm. We always forget how differently we act when we're in the scenario if they're not winning games.
Yeah, of course. That's when the calls will call, really start getting louder and louder. And trust me, they hear it inside the building. And we're talking ownership. We're talking we're talking players. We're talking coaches. Everybody hears it. So it is a thing. And it's something they're going to have to deal with because no matter what, I mean, he already played 1 preseason game and you hear people say, he should start.
And that's where
there's no way around it. It's just going to happen.
Well, and like I saw Chase Daniel on his breakdown saying this is why. I was like, man, I feel like you're just kind of going for clicks there because like I said, like he did audible, but that is, in fact, when people are like, oh, Jones never really audibled, but those are the plays where I remember him audibling. It was like it's 3rd down. He's got press on this all curl and they've audible to a vertical. I remember that Washington week 2 game is the one that stands out. But there was that was the one. Those were the plays where I do descriptively remember, him doing that. So you shouldn't be rushing him along because
let's see how he does against the Jets now. This is another test. Like each step is another test.
Yeah, I think joint practice with the Jets is more indicative of how ready he is than it is, even the regular season.
He's going to see more
game
real
with the
defenses, I think, also in these joint practices. Like you don't just call completely vanilla bland stuff in joint practice. I think you're working more on your stuff. So I think this is probably a better test the next 2 days against the Jets than the actual preseason game. Let's do one more rookie because I know this is your guy and you love him, and I've been high on him now for the last couple of weeks because the first week of training camp he's going against Abdul Carter. And I'm talking about Marcus Bowe, Silent M, we'll call him. He's playing right tackle, and he's going against Abdul Carter.
Arcus Bowe.
And Marcus Bowe.
Arcus. The M is silent.
The M is silent in the first name, too. Arcus Bowe. So, didn't get that one. Slow on the draw there for me. he, the first couple, he had some bad reps the first couple of weeks. He's going against Abdul Carter. He's just getting acclimated. And I was like, it might be a tough go for him this summer. Incrementally, he's gotten better and better. And the preseason performance was very impressive for him. And now, actually, for the last few weeks, I'm like, wow, they might have something here at right tackle. Again, I wouldn't pump your chest and say, I told you so yet. It's too early. But this was a step. These last couple weeks, not just the preseason game, have been a step in the right direction for Marcus Bowe, and you could feel good about this guy. Okay, you know what? He might have a future here as a starting caliber player.
He was the longest breakdown I've ever done for a player that wasn't a quarterback because there's just so many layers. Like, he's an extremely intelligent player, and that's why, like, you see the strength issues, and you saw that at college at times, and you're like, this could, like, as you could be the smartest player in the world, you could be the most technical, you have the quickest feet. If you can't handle NFL power, that's a prerequisite. You can't play tackle in the NFL. And as much as he was going against the Bills backups are kind of power rushers. AJ Epinesa, Landon Jackson, the second rounder they got out of Arkansas this year. So, like, at least you saw him do well against those guys. And then
second team edge rushers are real players, the guys that actually play. So I think it's very indicative of kind of being able to play in a real game.
But what you saw an extremely intelligent tackle who has the athleticism to hang, and you didn't see any big issues of power not holding up, right? His one pressure allowed wasn't a power thing. And he looked really good. And I thought he would look good in preseason. Still wait to see what starters. And I think if he doesn't work at tackle whenever you do get that chance in the NFL, I still think you can try him at center because he does kind of have more of a center bodies build. But, we've seen a lot of rookie offensive linemen come play in preseason and stink. Evan Neal included.
It's an easy position to be bad in training camp and in the preseason and early in your career.
And the only guy who I remember really getting him is Abdul Carter, right? Chauncey Golston will have a win here or there, whoever, and he's only gotten limited starter reps. But when they started yanking the players because of false starts in training camp, go watch him versus Kavon in those snaps.
Yeah,
he handles him. So is he ready to go up against Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett? No. But I do think – do you think they'll open up that swing tackle job with him and James Hudson? Because they've obviously put a decent amount of money into Hudson.
Well, I don't think they're going to play Marcus Bowe at left tackle if they have to. I think James Hudson will get the first crack there. If it's right tackle, I think maybe. But I don't think they want to flip him early in his career. Let's say Andrew Thomas can't play and something happens. Although, by the way, I hear he's trending towards the right direction still. So, at least for now.
When do you think he's going to be back?
It'll be interesting to see what happens this week. I do think that.
Do you think they let him jump right into those joint practices?
No. I think the goal is to get him ready for the final preseason game.
Okay.
So that would probably mean next week having to really practice.
What have you heard about them playing in the preseason? That's because it's the first year where we don't really have any trends to go off of because the joint practices are in the second week. And every year the starters have not played in the third preseason game. Do you?
Dable's been adamant about playing in the preseason. He said the other day, if I remember correctly, the words. I mean, it's not verbatim, but throughout the preseason, if guys can play, they're going to play. I think he might play him on all three games. I do.
I would be okay with that.
I think he went back and they studied it, and they don't look. There's nothing definitive about it, whether it's good to play starters or not. There's examples of it working both ways, right? Keeping guys healthier versus having guys ready. But I think they've made the decision that this summer they're going to play guys as much as possible. So I wouldn't be surprised if they play in all three games. Let me add this. I think the most telling thing to me about the preseason game was the first team offense. And I know Malik Neighbors didn't play. And I know Darius Slayton didn't play. And those are the big play guys. But if you want an idea, we see it every day. If the other people who don't, if they want to see what the Giants offense is going to look like with Russell Wilson, that was it right there. It was dump, but then you're going to have the deep shots thrown in there. Like, I think that's what the offense is. It's going to be run heavy with a lot of short, quick, easy passes. He's going to not take a lot of risks. That's what he does. 3rd and 17s, you're going to see the 3-yard dump off. Like, that's been his MO the last couple of years. I think that's what you're going to get, but sprinkled in with the deep passes, which they didn't have the other day because they also, in part because they didn't have their best receivers for that.
It's not even just deep. It's just kind of like in camp, you've seen this with Russ. It's like first read to check down. and first read is Malik Neighbors, and Malik Neighbors gets open. You know what I mean? So when he has Little, Jordan Humphrey, and like those guys aren't getting, so there's going to be a game where there's going to be we are not getting through a season where there's not some level of frustration with Russell Wilson. But I think what you do know is he has, even in his worst season, he has been consistently good throwing the deep ball and throwing it a lot. That's even his lowest point in Denver. He was good at that. It's just, can you find some type of middle ground in between those and the checkdowns?
Right. There was 3 of the 7 passes were through to his running backs. 3 of his 7 pass attempts were to his running backs.
And 3 to tight ends. Actually 4, because one was called back. So I did it. There was 1 target to receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson on that.
That's
on
also
that
because of the
curl.
receivers that were in there. So but I just think that percentage of passes to the running backs, and even like the tight ends on the quick outs like that, I think Theo at least caught 1 of those. I'm not sure if there was 2 of them. Those are the routes that you're going to see over and over and over again for Russell Wilson. And that's just what the offense is going to look like early in the season with him as the quarterback. And I just think that people should prepare themselves for a version of that, a better version, because when Malik Neighbors is there, it looks different, but some sort of version of that. I think that was indicative of like what they're going to, because that's what it's looked like most of the summer.
Well, and I'll say this, if the offense is missing Neighbors, Slayton, and Thomas, this offense is going to be terrible too. Like it's going to be, it's going to be
if the offense is missing Neighbors, it's going to be bad offense.
Yeah, so
it's that simple.
Even if Slayton gives you a guy who can just get open, the top corners can smother him, but he can get open versus corner ones. Without Slayton, there's nobody who can get close to getting open versus corner ones. But I think it's going to be spread differently. And I did a video last week on, because I keep track of training camp stats from year to year, and so I did, through their first 100 or whatever completions, the top 7 catch getters.
Oh, is this training camp?
Yeah,
I'm not going to look. Can I guess the most catches at training camp?
So this is Giants Daniel Jones last year versus Russell Wilson this year.
All right, how about I guess this year, and you tell me how that guy compares to last year? Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Number 1's got to be Neighbors.
Yes, last year he was 2nd in catches.
Tracy is probably 2.
Yes, Tracy is 2.
Which is probably a huge jump from the previous year. You got to count Singletary, I guess.
Singletary had more than Tracy last year. He was 4th in receptions last year.
But now that's jumping the 2nd with Jones compared to Wilson.
Yes.
The running back. Theo Johnson or Slayton or 3rd? Slayton.
No, Slayton is Slayton. So here's this year. Okay. Neighbors 1 with 25. Tracy 2nd with 14. Theo Johnson is 3rd with 10.
That's a Theo over
last
Slayton.
year, the top tight ends receptions through 7 catches through 10 training camp practices was 2. Theo Johnson. And there was Lawrence.
Their tight end position was insufficient last year.
Yeah, but Cager had 1. Bellinger had 1.
It was just an insufficient position.
And then this year for 4th, you have Slayton, Hyatt, Robinson all had 7 catches, which they each kind of had their own couple days that they missed in there. But even Darius Slayton, 7 catches, 3 of them came when Neighbors went out in that practice. Right. So it's very much wide receiver 1.
Wandale's targets are going to drop.
Yes, and I know because of Daniel Jones, it's Wandale's going to be so much better. I think he's the guy who's going to suffer the most because he'll have more deep catches this year.
Field.
He shouldn't catch deep. We should not be targeting him down the field that often, because it's going to go. And look, half the interceptions in training camp have been deep targets to Wan'Dale Robinson. So he'll have more space when he catches those quick passes and more yak. And I think yak is the key to how good is Wan'Dale this year. But he's not going to get the same opportunity.
There's
and he's
not going to be the middle of the field that there was last year. That's not what Russell Wilson does. He's a smaller quarterback. He doesn't throw to his tight ends down the middle of the field. He doesn't throw to the slot receiver in the middle of the field very often. That's not his thing. He works the sidelines. He works those short, quick passes. He hits the deep ball. Yeah. He has the move ball. So that's what he is as a quarterback at this point of his career for the most part.
That's what it's going to be with Russ. It's first read to check down for the most part. Hopefully, the first read is a lot of times vertical, and that's going to lead to points for the Giants. But that is what it is, and that is a better version than the spread around Daniel Jones last year, too. So it's better. It's just we'll see how much better it is, and if it leads to wins for the Giants.
All right, let's rip through 4 quick topics I have here of things that I came out of this game thinking. Right, cornerback 2, very interesting. I thought it was eye-opening that they made Deontay Banks play the whole first half. And then Joe Shane, he was okay. And even Joe Shane said on that one play, he wished he would have turned his head around, right? That's kind of the MO with him. Now maybe he's going to win the job, but because Flott's been injured and he hasn't been on the field, that's the easiest way not to win a job. But it does tell me that the Giants are not completely sold on Deontay Banks and giving him that, just handing him the opportunity. They're at the very least going to make him earn it as much as humanly possible. And if he doesn't play well, they're going to turn into Cordell Flott if he's healthy.
Yeah, how do they feel about him? Because I can't remember who we were talking to, but maybe it was Don Levy, but or it might even been you. But talk about, like, does it feel like they're greasing the skids?
I think I kind of said that. I just said it's possible. That's the thing,
because that's what it feels like.
It
where
does,
it's like
that. That's I don't know anybody that said that. I'm just looking at it from the outside and think, hey, you know what? It does sort of seem like that's what they're doing. They seem to be, preparing for the possibility that he's just not good enough, and they just have to move on from him at some point.
Right.
Now, I don't think they can do it because they need him now. Like, they're pretty short there. Like, what are they going to do? They kind of need him, especially if Cordell Flott. He's not really reliable, because he's always banged up. It's never anything serious, but he's very thin, very frail, and he's always banged up. So can you really trust him?
Yeah, and it's not like Flott's this world beater,
right?
Either, he still gives up passes down the field because of the lack of size, not because of the lack of ball skill. But again, Flott's not turning the ball over. He has 2 interceptions in 3 years. Hell, the same amount as Deontay Banks, and Deontay Banks has 1 last year.
I still think he's going to get the chance, Banks.
Yeah,
if you say I had a bet on it, yeah, the other guy's injured, and he's still probably their best option now.
I'd hope so, but at the Senior Bowl, I was talking with some people, and it's like, yeah, Banks was kind of not engaged, not buying into what Shane Bowen, the defense, was selling at all. And I wondered how they would treat that. They obviously fired Jerome Henderson, and I mean, like you said, there's been when this came up in OTAs, I was like, oh, they're trying to push Banks. And I haven't seen a position battle go this long in camp where it was kind of dead even, splitting reps, and then Flott got injured. But usually by like day 4, day 5, somebody kind of takes the edge at that spot, and that just didn't happen until Flott finally went down with injury.
Let's go to the other competition. Right guard, GVR, Greg Van Roten. He's the veteran. They feel like they could trust him. They can get serviceable play out of him. I'm sure in a perfect world they would hope Evan Neal can play at a really high level, but now he got banged up and he didn't play in the preseason game. Has to hurt him. And then Jay Kubas, actually, he's out of the competition. He did not play well in the preseason game. He's not had a great camp, in my opinion. I can't imagine him being the starter there. So I think it's leaning, and we're heading towards Greg Van Roten getting the first opportunity. Maybe Evan Neal at some point earns it, but it's going to be a long road. And I would definitely at this point bet on Greg Van Roten to be the starter week 1.
I really never took Neal as competing for that, and more as competing to show he can be the first guard. And maybe that's just my point of view.
I felt like that door was open for him if he played really well, that they would have.
Well, I guess I've never seen Neal play that well enough to even consider that, right? Like, I know
that's your evaluation. I think the Giants were hoping to see it, though.
Yeah, I know, and I know they were pretty happy with those first couple of days of practice, and oh, look, he had this win versus Dexter Lawrence or whatever. And hey, when they did that first day of full pads and all they did was just run inside to kind of set the tone, which is always the first day of full pads.
Right.
He looked his best, because that's where Neal's his best. Once they opened up the field, you saw him get, beating some stunts and laterally, and then in the run game, not be able to reach, from the backside and fall, tripping over himself when he's pulling because the Zudu's waiting on him. So I guess I just never have seen him be near enough to Greg Van Roten to ever take that too serious.
Greg Van Roten is just a serviceable veteran at this point that they could trust to do the right things. So I thought the opportunity was there, but like you said, Evan Neal probably can help him in the power run game and be good there and okay there. Probably a liability as a pass protector. So defensive tackle 2 spot or 3, whatever we want to call it, 2/3. Anyone other than Dexter Lawrence was a big concern. It didn't look great this summer, to be honest with you. Roy Robertson Harris, I thought, who they signed and had an underwhelming camp a little bit, but he played really well in the preseason game.
Yeah, he had
that was encouraging. And then the other guy, is Jeremiah Ledbetter. He's had a disappointing summer altogether. He's almost buried on the third team. Been surprised to see that. And then Rakeem Nunez-Roches is, I thought, he would have to play well to stay, or at least stay at his salary. And I don't know. They kind of can't afford to do anything with him yet. Like, they need. It's probably. Tell me what you think. Dexter Lawrence, Roy Robertson, Harris, Rakeem Nunez, Roaches as the top 3 on running downs to start on base package.
I think those, that is it. Roy Robertson,
DJ Davidson played well the other day too, I thought.
Yeah, but it seemed he was playing well into the fourth quarter, and so maybe he's even on the. And they love Chapman. Like they really like Chapman. It's not
as a pass rusher though. He's not going to be a base down start guy.
But they put him there. They put him there.
I saw him get moved back like 15 yards.
I know, but they like him, man.
I know they do, but he can't be a base down guy. He could be a useful guy. It's got to be in that pass rush type role.
But I thought he wouldn't make the roster because he becomes redundant now that you have Abdul Carter and Chauncey Golson, and then hopefully Alexander eventually. But I think he's staying around now.
Been a slow summer for Alexander too.
Yeah, Alexander's just not ready.
Yeah, so I don't think people should expect him to play like first of all start, which I think people automatically were plugging him into the starter spot, and or even contribute early on.
Yeah, Alexander's just not ready. We started using hashtag just a rookie whenever talking about a rookie who's performing badly. He's just a rookie, but he's not ready. And I thought Alexander would win that job, not because I thought he had this stellar rookie season and we overrate every rookie that comes in, but I just thought the rest of the room was so bad, and I still don't feel better. Like that Roy Robertson Harris having a pass rush move, I like that, but it's not changing what I saw every training camp practice of him getting just pinned down and killed by Chris Manhertz or whoever was lying. Like that.
I feel a little better about him though, seeing that at least maybe in the game, maybe it's just turning it up to a different level.
It's the run defense that I'm worried about, though. If like Roy Robertson,
for sure,
like
that's definitely the concern is the interior good enough to stop the run?
Yeah, like before this you asked me who's the second best pass rush in the defensive tackle group next to Dix, I would have said Roy Robertson Harris. I'm like, but he's not that good at it.
So who's the best run stuffers next to Dix?
Nacho. I think Ledbetter is too.
Guys.
Yeah, again, Roy Robertson Harris is going to play, and I think Ledbetter is, but they just have never. I don't think they've ever taken Ledbetter serious at all in training. I mean, like you said, he has
been very surprised by that. By the way, I didn't expect that, but
I thought they played on the same team last year, and Ledbetter I thought was a better run defender, but they just have never. It's like Jordan Phillips last year, where Phillips probably was one of the best 3 or 4 defensive tackles on the team last year. They just kind of never took him serious.
Last topic I want to touch here, Gnau. He's kind of was in that Nacho category. Needed to prove himself this summer. Salary, whether it would be slashed or, potential cut candidate, whatever it may be. Hitting 350-yard field goals, I think, kind of eases your concern about whether there's going to be a drop off with him or. Obviously, he's been injured the last 2 years. Maybe you can't assume he's going to be healthy, but he's been healthy so far. So I think that was a huge win for Gnau and his future with the Giants by kicking 350 or more yard field goals.
Stay healthy. That's the thing is stay healthy because he's been injured. He's been bad and injured over the last couple of years.
But if his range showed that he was more erratic, I think he would have been there would have been a decision to make there.
Sure. Yeah. I feel better because again, he's been bad the last 2 years, been, two of the worst kicking years of his career and in the league the last couple of years. So I guess that is a leave. I still think it's crazy the fact that they could save so much money on his contract and they didn't spend the majority of their UDFA money bringing in like a Ryan Fitzgerald or whatever kicker, out of college. But at least he looks good now. He's gotten injured the last couple of years. He got injured earlier in his career, and he likes to bash Carolina, for how they handled that. Just stay healthy because he's been a great kicker for the Giants outside the last 2 years.
You want to do questions here for the last 20 minutes? You want to do a quick stock draft or save that for next
time?
Yeah,
so why don't we have people get their questions in the chat and then we'll get to those.
Stock draft.
Yeah, and we'll do
get your questions in the chat. We'll do a quick stock draft. We'll alternate who you think their stocks up the most from training camp and the preseason combined. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
I won't say Abdul Carter because
why don't you say Abdul Carter?
Well, I think his stock
should start at the top. His stock was already so high.
I think I kind of was expecting this out of this. I think he's special.
This good? I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, but you watch him and this is special, right?
And checking every box.
And it's
training camp domination.
Yeah.
Preseason domination.
I've never felt bad about comparing him to Micah Parsons, and this is before he was drafted by the Giants when I didn't think the Giants were going to draft him.
Okay, so where are you going? Where are you starting? Whose stock is the highest right now? Off training camp and preseason.
I know he got injured. I'll say, no, I was going to say Drew Phillips, but he still gives up passes down the field. You know, I'll say Marcus Bo, because as much as I like Bo and was like in the 5th round, I was texting you, was like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Why aren't they drafting him? And they draft him. I still worried about the strength, right? And I understood why he slid, because that is a prerequisite. And the only guy I've seen overwhelm him is Abdul Carter. And Abdul Carter kind of overwhelms Jermaine Illuminor, and I know Illuminor's a good player. So I'll say Marcus Bo.
I'm going to just stick at the top of the depth chart and go with Malik Neighbors, because, man, when he's on the field, he's just unguardable. And there's no one on the Giants that could even stick with him. He makes it look super easy. I'm like looking at him like he might be a guy. I don't know. This is why I want to see him against Sauce Gardner. He might be a guy that's like up in near the Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson range type guy. Like he could be that good. If not, he's probably like one step below, which is still really awesome. So I don't know. I've been super impressed by Neighbors, just the way he's able to get open just with such ease every practice.
Okay. All right. Are we still doing up or down?
We'll just go all up. We're going to be super positive here. 5 ups each.
Let's see. Here's the thing: is I spend so much time on the Giants that like I spend way too much time focusing on the Giants, where it's like I know a lot about these guys,
but you have to realize not everybody on the outside.
I know. So I'm trying to think of from the like when everyone asks what a surprise cut is, I'm like, well, it's not a surprise cut, but I'm like, remember, like 99% of people don't know about the Daniel Bellinger contract incentive. That like I didn't know about that shit 6-7 years ago. So I'll say second stock up. I'll go Tyler Nubin. I know he hasn't made a bunch of flashy plays. I feel like he's been their best run defender with Dexter Lawrence being out. As here comes the bus. I feel like he's been their best run defender in training camp, and he had in his limited preseason action, he had a really good play too. So I'll say Tyler Nubin. I have big expectations for Nubin. I still expect him to be the second best player from that draft class. So I'll say Tyler Nubin. It's a little quieter one, but I think he's going to make some plays this year.
I mean, I'm just going to play to the people here and take Abdul Carter, because we can't not pick him here, because he's just been so good. So good that you can't even have him playing on the second team. And I'll also add this. I wasn't sure how he would do as like an interior rusher. I knew he could play off the ball. I'm impressed at how he's been so successful as like a sort of defensive tackle, like 3-5 technique kind of guy. I wasn't sure because, the one thing when I asked a coach who studied him, how he, is he basically Micah Parsons? And one thing he said, he didn't have Micah Parsons' power. So I wasn't I thought maybe that would prevent him from being really good on the interior of the defensive line. And for that alone, and the fact that he could play all those spots at a super high end, I got to go with Abdul Carter.
So Lamar G-Men reminded me, Montrell Washington. No one knew who he was. He got signed after the Super Bowl when he reverted to a free agent off the Chiefs practice squad. And now I think he might actually make the team. I know people said he had 2 drops. That kind of drives me crazy that last one people are calling a drop. Yeah, it was like he's the ball's behind him, and I didn't see a good replay of it, but I slowed it down, and I think the corner gets his hands on it first, but it's behind him. The first one was
regardless.
He's had
a good camp.
Yeah, it's not just simply catching passes in preseason. We always fall in love with one wide receiver in the preseason, and it's not just that. It's like if Wan'Dale gets injured, who's the slot receiver? They don't have anybody if it's not Montrell Washington. Amir Smith-Marset cannot be put in that role for more than the end of the game. Yeah, that's who they wanted it to be, and they very quickly moved off of that for Washington.
Yeah. I'm probably going to go with Nick Jones here.
Okay. He had a bad game, though.
He did, but overall, I think the fact that he's been in that spot, he's earned, I guess Drew Phillips got injured. That's why I was taking into account that he got moved into that spot. Maybe I shouldn't go there. How about this? I'm going to go with the other safety, Javon Holland.
Okay.
I thought he's had a really strong summer. When I talked to people, I had heard he had down season last year. And so I was wondering, where was he as a player? You see him on the field, you're like, this guy's a good player. Like, he's a really good player. He's a good, like, I don't see a scenario where he's not a good player for the New York Giants.
Okay.
He might not be great, but he's definitely a quality starting caliber NFL safety, a good player. And I've been impressed by him this summer.
All right, cool. In fact, I'm going to do this for 1 second.
Okay.
I'm just going to show people that bus is here.
There it is.
And then, all right, so let's get to some of the questions. I saw a good one. And I think this is interesting. Okay. Antonio Vidal, are the Giants still interested in Gabe Davis, Jordan? Some people are calling you Lil Jordan.
Lil Jordan, yeah, that's my cousin. I do. I think they are. Last I checked, I think the Giants were. I mean, Gabe Davis is a guy who's played for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. They know him well. And the thing with Gabe Davis is he's owed that money by Jacksonville. So it's not an expensive signing regardless. And you see the depth at receiver. They certainly, especially if Neighbors or Slayton are banged up, you see it's definitely thin. So, yeah, I think it's more a matter of where Gabe Davis wants to go than whether the Giants want him or not.
So, if they sign Gabe Davis,
a lot of teams want Gabe Davis when he comes on the cheap because it's basically being offset by the Jaguars' money.
Yeah. So, and again, he's coming off a serious injury, and that's a big part of it. But even though he was an overrated player, he's better than what Jalen Hyatt has been, and like in multiple areas.
I would like to see Hyatt be given a chance, though, and because he was a 3rd-round pick. I'd like to see them try to get something out of him. You can't just bury him.
I was going to say,
that's kind of what would happen, I think, if they did sign him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is it like a Cole Beasley situation where it's like, oh, sign this vet who's been productive under Brian Daboll and he never plays, or is it we're kind of out on Jalen Hyatt and we know what he is? We don't have to keep pretending. We got to figure out what we have in this guy.
I think he's been better this summer, so I think they do have hope that he can contribute and they can find ways to utilize him. But I also don't think they would turn down if Gabe Davis said, "I want to come there." I don't. So they would just have both of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's get some other questions. Jordan's favorite gun.
That's
I heard you were kind of trash talking the Tony Award in the press room a little bit, but
not really. I just said I wish it didn't have the gun, the rifle.
That's trashing it.
I mean, it's just a tough one. It's just a tough one. I do love it though. It's sitting on top of my desk. You know that?
I'm excited about that.
It's displayed prominently, as they would say.
Durango says, Lil Jordan, any word on a trade at cornerback?
No, I haven't heard anything about that. I think the Giants are still kind of trying to figure out where they're at the position. They would like to. Deontay Banks was a 1st-round pick, so I don't think they're ready to move on from that just yet. I think that's more a position they address when it comes to cuts and waivers at the end of the summer. And maybe if they feel like they need a veteran at that position, that's where you go at that point. But nothing at this point.
Hey, I don't
think we're there yet.
Before we get to the next question, I have to ask you about this. Is it an actual red flag that Jackson Dart just looked at Easy Pass and just said, I'm like, because I know somebody in my life who they just didn't pay tolls. And in fact, their car was under they got like tickets on their dad's like license or points on their license because of that. Is it an actual red flag that Dart has kind of been here for a few months and has never thought like maybe I should sign up for Easy? Like, how do you not know what Easy? Every state has some version of it.
Yeah, I you know what? It's funny because isn't this what the Giants like quarterback process is supposed to test like these kind of things? They want like Jackson Dart to like make the reservation to see if he can handle the reservation or whether he pawns it off on someone else. This seems to be the kind of situation where you wish he would have just figured out to get Easy Pass. Yeah, I'm guessing he doesn't have TSA pre-check either.
Crazy. Well, I get. Never mind. I won't get into that.
You should. Not having TSA pre-check is the equivalent of not having Easy Pass.
I disagree. TSA lines have gotten so much faster than what they were. Where it used to be like hour max. I'm surprised if I'm in a line for more than 15 minutes at the airport now. It's a surprise.
Doesn't matter. The TSA pre-check is 90% of the time shorter, and the cost is so minimal that it's just silly. You might as well just not have Easy Pass.
This is actually interesting because Jameis said this in their mic'd up thing. Noel Davis says, are the Giants having Dart use the VR goggles that Jaden Daniels used last year? Because I know that seems like something people
also. I haven't seen it, though. I haven't seen anything about it. I was going to ask about it because we actually talked about it at our ESPN meeting recently. about the VR goggles, and I didn't think the Giants had used them, but Jameis did mention it, so I will look into that, but I have not. I have not seen any evidence of them using it.
Jaden Daniels puts like a lot of credence into that.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I can't sit here and say that it's the reason why or not, but like, I sure as hell wouldn't hurt to try it.
Yeah, I don't see how it could hurt. Why you wouldn't try it? I mean, it seems like something that could be useful.
Yeah. All right, we can go. Let's do a couple more quick questions, and then we'll wrap up episode number 1. Let's see. Thoughts on Thomas Fidone? Do you think he's going to make the team?
I thought he probably would end up on the practice squad, but having a good preseason games, it definitely bumps it up a drop, right? Because it makes it a little harder to maybe get him on the practice squad. I think you probably can. He was a 7th round pick. I don't know who's going to guarantee him after you passed on him in all 6 rounds to then put him on. So if I had to guess, he'd be on the practice squad, but we'll see how the rest of the preseason goes.
Well, I'll ask you the last question. You always spend the summer talking about certain things, and surprise cut is one of those things every year. And Bellinger's name came up because of, his role on the team not being as high as it was when he first joined, and the fact that his contract they could save about $2 million. Everyone says 3, but in reality, you have to replace that player with a player. But so about $2 million. Do you think that's out of the question now, or is that still in play? Because we really haven't heard anything of that, and he has been involved with the first team quite a bit in training camp.
Yeah, I don't think actually. I thought it was Gnau and Nacho that were more likely to be on that. Like, we're unsure about their contract and their situation here coming into the summer, and I did not have Bellinger, at least from what I had heard. He wasn't kind of in that boat. Now, if Fidone plays really well, it could change that. But as of now, I don't think so. I still think he's going to be a part of this team and somebody that they like. He's still their second best blocker now, right? Like if you lined up the guys as blockers, he's probably 2 after Manhurts.
I think he's the best on the move. I think in line Theo was better, but on the move.
I just think like they need. I think they need the blocking aspect. I don't know if Fidone's ready for that at this point, and he's been inconsistent catching the ball in practice. I would lean towards Bellinger still being good, and going into the summer, I didn't even think it was a question, to be honest.
And I don't want to dump on Fidone too much, but I do see a guy where I'm like, I just don't see you ever getting those targets in the NFL. Like, you'll get them in the 4th quarter of a preseason or on a 2-point conversion. But I just haven't seen him just win on a route outside of a crosser in training camp. Which, again, he's got a nice catch radius and stuff. But in order to be the guy who gets the tight end who gets to use his catch radius a ton, you have to show yourself worthy of 7-8 targets per game. And I don't know if Fidone's ever going to do that. And is he going to be a good enough blocker? So, again, I guess I did dump on Fidone a little bit. But
pick a couple quick ones. Come on.
All right, quick ones.
We'll go exactly an hour. So we got 6 minutes here.
All right. Biggest worry going into the regular season, says super necessary.
Run defense. The interior, that'll ruin everything for them if they can't stop the run. It just negates their pass rush. I think that to me is the biggest concern. Like we mentioned before, Roy Robertson, Harris, Nacho, are those 2 guys good enough for the rest of the interior guys next to Dexter Lawrence good enough for that run defense to be solid?
Max Webster, Bobby OK, and let's go 55 minutes. Just for the people, because we want to save some questions for next week. Bobby Okereke, I guess it's your show. We can go an hour. I can't make the rules here. Bobby Okereke update.
I
very
like
quiet from training camp.
Exactly an hour.
All right, yeah, exactly an hour. How about that?
Bobby Okereke has taken in pretty much every single first team rep. I don't see them being as sour on Bobby Okereke as it seemed to be out in the public. I think
right.
They didn't really go after any middle linebackers. Maybe if they like Darius Muasau enough, I think they do like him, but have you seen enough where you want to make that insert Darius Muasau as your starting middle linebacker?
I don't think
that's your option right now. You want to go Bobby Okereke or Darius Muasau. So I don't think that's the reality at this point.
Yeah. In fact, let's do one more question, and
don't, by the way. You haven't been blown away by Darius Muasau, right?
No, I don't. I just don't think he's capable of blowing me away.
I agree. I don't think he's capable of being a full-time starter.
This is the last question, and we can spend the last 5 minutes talking about the show going forward.
Oh yeah. We should. It's a good idea.
Blue Dragonfly 5, which I think I just swatted a Blue Dragonfly away. Are they going to keep Turbo Miller?
That's an interesting one because he certainly, has worked his way into that mix. And the only thing that I think is kind of holding him back at this point is Devin Singletary more reliable as a pass blocker. Is Devin Singletary their guy? And because he, Brian Dable and Joe Shane love him, and B, because they paid him and they have that money invested in him. So that's the only thing working against Turbo Miller. Honestly, I think they should find the spot for him. His explosiveness is it pops when you watch him play.
The issue is I don't think you can ever give him I think he had 2.5 yards per carry, and obviously that's part O-line, but he doesn't.
He's a very specialized.
He's
player.
not. Yeah, he's not breaking tackles within the tackle box. He doesn't have good vision. He is simply speed and go. Which, if he's your third back, you can live with that. But
but you would use him as a third down scat back type guy. I wouldn't use him to run between the tackles.
But here's the thing: is you have Cam Scatterbo who breaks all these tackles, who's good in that spot. You have Tracy who can be good in that spot, and then you have Singletary who's going to be on this team kind of no matter what, like you said, partly due to his contract. So
I still think you could put Turbo Miller on the practice squad, so that's the most likely.
Yeah, that's what I think. So, so I'm not going to be on. I think some people misunderstood. I'm not going to be on this show every week. I'm sure I'll make appearances here and there.
Maybe we'll have a segment every week where you pop on or something.
Yeah,
so when we go back and forth on something. But something like that. But yeah,
it's
going to be Breaking Big Blue on the Giants Nation Show YouTube channel.
Yeah, correct.
With assistance from you.
Presented by Giants Nation Show. So I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, and the goal is every Monday at 7.
Yeah.
Now let's be fair. I might have something that week. We might have to move it back a few hours. We might have to move it to Tuesday. They might play a Monday night game that week. It might be a holiday. There's a lot of different scenarios where it might not always be on Monday. I can't guarantee that. I might be traveling back from somewhere and not getting back until 6:30 and be come home to my house and be see you later, wife and kids. I got to go do the show right away. So we'll work it out, but that'll be the tentative date every week. And if not, keep an eye out. We'll update the time and the date, but that's the goal at least.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to set you up with this, whether, taking questions at the end, if you pull on interviews. And I also want to say,
we're at close to 4,500 people in here.
Yeah.
That's a good number.
And it's doing well on YouTube. And I think it's going to,
let's go.
I think it's going to work really well. So this is, you'll be driving this. I'll be excited to be, in the back and the behind the scenes. We know how important behind the scenes are.
You got a real setup here. I'm impressed. You got
the show is crazy.
Starlink, computers. You got a professional camera and
this is real deal.
You got it all. So and also make sure you subscribe to Giants Nation Show YouTube page, and the podcast as well.
Yep.
And Jordan Raanan, ESPN Breaking Big Blue on YouTube as well, and all the podcast platforms. Subscribe, tell all your friends every Monday. Make sure you're here. Bobby and we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about all the most pertinent topics each week. So make sure you tune in.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be fun in season, and then end of season when it's all right, what's happening with this guy? What's or leading up to the draft. I think it's going to be fun and do interviews. And like you said, if there's a bar that wants to have us host us and say, hey, I'll give you guys this, and you guys come out and bring out a crowd. I feel like we can be flexible as we want to with this. So
and we could try a lot of different things. So if you have suggestions, throw them this way. We're always open to trying new things.
Cool.
With that being said, are we at an hour? We're at an hour. See?
Yeah, we're at 59 minutes. Close it out.
It says 8:00.
Okay. Well, we started at
2 seconds. Come on.
Yeah.
We're good. You're listening to Breaking Big Blue in collaboration with Giants Nation Show. Make sure you subscribe, tell your friends. See you next time.